Hello and welcome to my first video. My name is Meg. I'm an esthetician and I've been doing aesthetics for about 4 years now. Today I wanted to talk about the differences between waxing and sugaring. I've, like I said, been an esthetician for 4 years, but I've actually been sugaring for 2.5, so not quite as long, but I'm pretty experienced with both and pretty comfortable doing both of them as well. A lot of people ask me what the differences are, so I wanted to go over in kind of more clear and concise way instead of rambling on, which I always do whenever someone asks me to talk about them. I could literally go on for days. Wax and sugar is both a form of epilation, which is removing the hair by the root so that it's completely out of the hair follicle and a whole new hair has to grow in its place. They're both good, they're both different. And so I'm going to go over the pros and cons of both and then do a little bit of a demo at the end of the video. All right, on to the next. All right, so I'm going to start off by talking about the pros and cons of sugar. So one thing I love about sugar is that it's kept at a lower temperature than wax, which is really nice, especially for anybody who has sensitive skin and finds they get a lot of redness and irritation afterwards. The lower temperature, anywhere from like 25 to 35 degrees Celsius, just depending on a lot of factors, help with lessen the irritation somebody finds from the treatment. Another thing, and this one I'd like to say with an asterisk, is that it's less painful. I don't love saying, oh yeah, it's definitely less painful, because that really varies from person to person. Some people find it less painful. Some people find it more painful. Like, it really depends on the person. Overall, I find there's less irritation afterwards, and that can definitely be a bonus, but during the appointment, no matter what, you're going to experience discomfort. Another great advantage is that it's really easy cleanup. So after your appointment, if you feel any sticky residue on it, you just take like a wet cloth and you wipe that sugar right off. Amazing. It's also got really simple ingredients, so it's just a list of 3 ingredients: sugar, lemon juice, and water. All that's in it. Very simple product. And because of that, it's also a little bit less wasteful too. So all you have is like one little glob of sugar that you used for the area that you're removing the hair from, and then you throw it in the garbage. So that and a pair of gloves is all you need. So it is a less wasteful service, which is really nice and something that I like quite a bit. The cons. So there's not like a ton of cons for it, but it's not everybody's favorite either. So it's about finding what you like. One con is that it can pull longer hairs. So if somebody comes in and say they've like never shaved their hairs before, they've never had a wax before, nothing like that, and their hairs are quite long, applying the sugar to it, especially because you're applying the opposite direction of hair growth, can kind of give a little tug on the hairs, which is definitely not very comfortable. One is more of a con for the consumer is that it's less common. So it's a lot harder to find somebody who's a professional sugarist than it is to find a place that'll do waxing, which pretty much everywhere does waxing. So that is one kind of downside, is that it's not as easy to find. Another potential con is that it can take more time than waxing. Waxing can be a very quick appointment, where sugaring can take a little bit longer. That of course depends on the technician. And then lastly is really more of a technician con. And lastly is really more of a technician con than like a client con, but it's a very climate sensitive product. So it's a very climate sensitive product, so it can actually be a real pain in really hot weather and really cold weather and really humid weather. All these things really can affect the consistency, so that in itself can just be a little bit annoying to work with for the technician and could affect the outcome of your appointment as well. So that is something to keep in mind. Time of year, humidity, everything like that can affect the way sugaring is. Ideally, a good technician will be able to work in any kind of condition, but that is something that can affect the appointment. Alright, so next I'm going to go over the pros and cons of soft wax, or strip wax as it's called. This is the most common kind of wax you will find. Pretty much every salon, every spa offers strip wax in their waxing services. So it's very easy to come across. You've probably seen it, experienced it, maybe even bought a kit from like Shoppers and used it on yourself at home, hopefully not too unsuccessfully. Alright, so the first pro for soft wax is that it is amazing for large areas. It's really efficient at removing hair from a large area of skin quickly, and it generally does a pretty good job of getting the hairs out. Next pro is that it's very easy to do, which is why you can go buy a kit for it at like the drugstore or something and take it home and wax yourself. I don't necessarily recommend that. Just say use with caution and follow the instructions. The advantage is that it's cheap. If you go to a spa or salon, you can generally get it done quite cheaply. Now, please remember that if you're getting a service done very cheaply, that often means the place you're going to is cutting corners in some way or another, often double dipping sticks or just doing other things that are very unhygienic and unsanitary that put you at risk for infection, which is why I generally advise people to do research to the places they're going to before going there, because your safety is the most important thing. Okay, on to the cons. So one of the cons obviously is that it's at a higher temperature. It's hard to say exactly what temperature it will be at because it really varies by esthetician and all wax pots are a little bit different, but it can be anywhere from like 41 to like 70 degrees Celsius. Again, I'm using Celsius because I'm Canadian and the only Fahrenheit I know is oven temperature. Oh, the next con is that it does leave a sticky residue on the skin. So even a good technician, you'll probably end up with a little bit of sticky residue on the skin, which has to generally be removed with an oil, which can be kind of a pain. It's not the end of the world, but it's just a little bit harder to get off. And then another con to it is that it can adhere to the skin. So sugar doesn't stick to live skin, generally speaking, but wax doesn't really discriminate what it sticks to. It can be a risk for ripping skin if somebody goes over an area multiple times, which is not recommended, but sometimes can be done. You have to be very careful with it, basically is what I'm saying. And then the last, and of course a bigger con in my opinion, is that it is very wasteful. So you're using sticks, you're using strips, and it's all just going in the trash. So there is a disadvantage that way, but overall it's not the worst, it's not the best. I think it still has applications, but that's just me. Okay, and surprise, you thought I was done, but there is actually another kind of wax that's called hard wax, which is our stripless wax used on smaller areas of the body, so face, underarms. Brazilian is my preferred uses for it, and that's really what I think can kind of make it not so like cut and dry as to whether wax or sugaring is better, because a lot of people don't know about hard wax, but it is a really great product. Alright, so into pros for hard wax. The first pro is that it's a medium temperature, so it's not going to be as hot as a strip wax. So again, less risk of burning the skin and better for sensitive areas. It is honestly the least painful kind of waxing or sugaring you can do. Well, it's not sugaring, but it's the least painful kind of epilation you can do. Tweezing probably being the most. It's the least painful kind of epilation you can do. Honestly, between waxing and sugaring, the hard wax, not the strip wax, is pretty painless overall. A lot of people like it, but I don't find it always does a good of a job getting every single hair out or grabbing sometimes shorter or more stubborn hairs. It can be a little bit more finicky with that. But overall, it's pretty good that way. It, just like sugar, doesn't stick to the skin, so you're only sticking to the hair, doesn't stick to skin at all, which is wonderful. Great for the face. I honestly especially love it for eyebrows. Sugar, I find, can be a little bit clunky for eyebrows, and strip wax is just, in my opinion, a no-no for brows because it's too sticky. And that skin is very sensitive. If, God forbid, somebody didn't tell you they were using like a retinoid product or something like that, you could potentially rip their skin off, and no thank you. You can also see what you're doing. So you're just applying the product. There's no strip on top. So you're not going to like rip off somebody's eyebrow, which I've never done before, but it's something I'm really scared to do. Oh, my last pro is This is my personal opinion, but I think it is a really great product for a first-time Brazilian, because if somebody's never had a Brazilian before, it's probably going to be the least painful and the easiest on them. Generally, it's pretty good for a first-timer, but as you go forward, getting more Brazilians more frequently, I find then switching to sugar, overall, they're going to get a better result. But for first time, it's going to be a little bit better of an experience overall. And then on to the cons. So, of course, the biggest con with this is that you can only use it on small areas of the body. I have heard of kinds of hard wax that work all over the body, but I've never seen one in person, and I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. Generally, it's a little bit too hard, too fast, and then it'll break off the skin, as opposed to coming off in a nice clean strip like it's supposed to. And that's why you can only use it for smaller areas. So again, face, underarms, Brazilian are my preferred areas for it. And then another con, just like the sugar, it's less common. So where I took my aesthetics course, they taught with hard wax, again for sensitive areas, but I know not all the schools teach with hard wax. I think it's more commonly a European thing, but overall it's just a little bit less popular. But I think it's a really amazing product, and if you're looking to get an intimate area waxed, talking to the salon and asking if they offer hard wax is a really great option if you're really nervous about how it's going to feel. It does take a little bit more time than strip wax especially would take. I know some people will do Brazilians and they'll just kind of do one strip, and you're done. Takes like very little time, but that's not how I'd recommend having Brazilian done. You're not going with the direction of hair growth, and just generally, ouch. So it might take closer to like 10 minutes than 2 minutes, depending on the technician, but it's worth the time, honestly. But it does take more time. If you just want to be in and out in 2 minutes, it's not going to happen. And then the last con, just like a soft wax, again, it is wasteful. You're using a thicker amount of the product. You're not using strips, but you are using more wax. So again, it's a little bit more wasteful, and you're using sticks. So that's pretty much it for pros and cons between all three. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot I missed, and maybe in the future I'll make another video about all this, or a series, or I don't know. I just want to see what happens and have fun. But I think that's kind of them summarized. So you just take a scoop out with your nice clean glove, and that's like all you'd need to do an area of the body. Depending on what area of the body, you might want a little bigger size of it, but you really don't need very much. It goes a long way. So put it on the opposite direction of hair growth. You just smooth it on, and then you flick, and that's it. Alright, so next up is strip wax. Like, personally, I'm a fan of it. It gets a bit of a bad rap by people who do sugaring, but I really think it has its applications and can honestly be a great product. It just needs to be used properly and effectively. So you put it on the direction of the hair growth, so the opposite of what I did with the sugar. And then you just take a little strip, give it a little rub, and rip. This one you're going to put on the direction of the hair growth, like so. Just demoing on my arm because that's easier. And then you wait for it to get tacky enough. That's great. Flick up the end there, and then you just pull it right off, get any residue off, and that's it. It's very gentle. So it's the next day, and I realized I did not film an outro, so I'm a little bit less glam today, but I just wanted to say thank you everybody who stuck through this video, for watching me and hopefully enjoying my content. I'll try to make more videos in the future. just kind of want to have some fun and see where the road takes me. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.